we'll start with the roll call.
Carl Niederman,
Here.
Lisa Ramon,
Here.
Eric Rowan,
Here.
John Maston.
Here.
Next, we'll move into a moment of silent prayer or private reflection. Amen. Next, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And moving on to 2.1, do we have an approval for the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Carl Niederman,
Yes.
Lisa Ramon,
Yes.
Eric Rowan,
Yes.
John Maston.
Yes.
Moving on to 3.1 with Superintendent Stone, talking about adding preschool designation to Oro Grande Classical Academy.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Preschool programs have a variety of benefits for students. They develop essential skills such as following instructions, taking turns, and listening attentively, all of which are critical for academic success. They also learn basic concepts like numbers, letters, shapes, and colors, which gives them a head start in their academic journey. Children who attend high-quality preschool programs demonstrate stronger early literacy and math skills compared to those who do not. As a result, those who attend preschool are more likely to enter kindergarten with the necessary skills and confidence to succeed academically. Studies consistently demonstrate the long-term benefits of preschool. These benefits extend beyond the early years and have a lasting impact on a child's education. Children who attend high-quality preschool programs are more likely to graduate from high school, pursue higher education, and have better career prospects. Preschool attendance has also been linked to reduced rates of grade repetition and special education placements. LHUSD currently houses preschool programs at Smoke Tree Elementary and Lake Havasu High School. This year, we have expanded preschool to Oro Grande Classical Academy and will need the grade configuration to reflect that it is now a pre-K to 6th grade program. So once you add pre-K to a building, which we are super excited about and it's going so well, in order for ADE to recognize that so we can put it in our synergy system, we just need to recognize that they are now a pre-K through 6th grade program, which is what you are approving this evening.
I move that we approve 3.1 as presented.
I'll second. Can you tell me how many students are enrolled in the preschool?
I believe it is
20
It
students?
is 20, and it enrolled very, very quickly, and it is so much fun to go and hang out in that class. If anybody ever wants to visit, you're welcome to do so.
Is it limited to just 20?
It is due to the number of staff we have.
Are there any plans in the future to expand either there or any other schools?
Yes, we would actually like to have this program in each of our elementary schools. This was kind of our first pass at it to see how it went at Oro Grande, the need for it in the community, how all of that was accepted. Super positive program so far. Parents very excited that they can enroll their students there. And we would like to expand that to each of our elementary schools, as we do know it is a need in our community.
And there is a fee associated with it.
There is a fee. Do you have the exact fee? I want to say it's $125 a week. It might be $135 a week.
That sounds right to me, and I think it was slightly less for district employees.
I
But
believe it's about $15 off if you're a district employee.
Okay. I'm a big supporter of preschool programs as well. We lived in Virginia when my children were smaller, and there's actually a public preschool initiative there. So my older two were able to go to preschool at no cost to us, and it did make a big difference. So anything that supports families in that way, I'm all for.
And just a little side note, Governor Hobbs is coming here next week, and we are advocating for public preschool. So that would be exciting if the state were able to take that on. Right now, they have not done that, but we will certainly advocate for that.
Carl Niederman,
Yes.
Lisa Ramon,
Yes.
Eric Rowan,
Yes.
John Maston.
Yes.
Moving on to 3.2, business services, architect services with Havasupai Elementary and the basketball courts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board members, the school district submitted a grant application to the Division of School Facilities seeking funding to replace the basketball courts at Havasupai Elementary. The current court has extensive cracking over much of the surface area. The DSF responded to the grant application and awarded design funds as part of the first phase of the project. Once the design is complete, the project will go back to the DSF for them to consider funding the construction phase of the project. Should the DSF approve funding, the project will come back before the governing board to approve construction. The awarded design amount is $24,856, and work will be procured through the SAVE contract 24-09-28. And this would be for EMC2.
I move that we approve 3.2 as presented.
I'll second that.
Cal Nederman,
Yes.
Lisa Lamont,
Yes.
Eric Laron,
Yes.
and John Maston.
Yes.
Moving on to 3.3, business services with the annual financial report for 2022-2023.
Thank you, Mr. President. Governing board members, the report was prepared in compliance with ARS 15-904. After approval by the governing board, the annual financial report will be submitted electronically to the Arizona Department of Education. A link to the summary will be available on the school district website, and the annual financial report was distributed to the board prior to the meeting, and the report will be presented as part of the action item. So I will go ahead and begin the presentation. Have not too many slides. We've done this many times before, and this is actually the conclusion of what we started back in June of 2022 as we present the proposed budget, and then later in July of 2022 as the adopted budget. So then as we end the fiscal year and go through the encumbrance period, this is just the backside and accounting of where those expenditures actually did hit the GL. You can see on this first page, this is page 1, not including the cover sheet. So page 1 after the cover sheet on your annual financial report that's in front of you. Page 1 records the revenues throughout major funds such as M&O, capital, adjacent ways, bond, and debt service. You can see that these lines are broken out by property tax revenue and state aid and state equalization towards the middle of the page. These areas are just circled or highlighted there just so it draws your attention to the different types of revenue. This report hasn't changed for years. However, it is there for the public to see just how revenues do come in and the percentage in which they are distributed or collected. You can see property tax being, as the state of Arizona is set up that way, property tax being the major source of funding to school districts throughout the state. On page 2 is the maintenance and operations expenditure page. This is very similar to the page you see during the proposed and adopted budget. This particular page just has an additional column to actually compare it with prior year. So you can see here that the M&O budget, when you're talking salaries and benefits, I have a kind of a summary and more detailed sheet following this particular slide. But for fiscal year 23, total expenditures in M&O came to $33,316,987, which is highlighted down in the bottom right. Not in the annual financial report, but in the presentation, just to try to make sense of what that all meant on page 2 that we just looked at in the financial report, breaking it down just kind of in columns. We can see that in the 6,100 salary column, that those expenses were contributed by the increase in base salary for certified staff in fiscal year 23, which they received a 7% increase and about $1.50 an hour increase for classified staff. COLA, the cost of living adjustment last year, totaled for just the 6,100, the salary portion of it, just under $1 million. And stipends totaled just over $700,000 in salary. The benefit side obviously is part of the workers' comp that you see in the Arizona State Retirement System, medical, and so on. In the 6200 benefits line for object code 6200, we had about 3.9 million in medical, and if you look at the asterisk, the note down at the bottom of the PowerPoint, we had approximately 1.1 million in credit from the closure of the old LHS EBT. I'm happy to say that the LHS EBT is finally closed. The bank accounts are closed. We have nothing more to do with that. So all of the monies, you'll recall that I mentioned that there was about a little over $4 million left over in the old benefit trust. In fiscal year 22, we transferred about $3 million over. And then in 23, we finished with the additional 1.1 that was left in that account. So like I said, in fiscal year 24 now, you won't see this come back before you as a report for the old LHS EBT because it was closed out in fiscal year 23. So like I said, 3.9 million. We pay a little over $5 million in medical benefits, medical premiums for the district for district employees. Arizona State Retirement System, the district's contribution was about 2.3 million. And then workers' comp, Medicare, Social Security, et cetera, the district's contribution or the payroll liability was about $1.68 million for those areas. In the areas of purchase services, which are your 63, 64, and 6500 object codes, we paid a little bit, just under $670,000 for substitutes throughout that fiscal year. We have staff who travel for professional development, who are sick. We have coaches who travel for athletics. So when you're dealing with 500 plus employees, you're close to 600, around 600 employees, you're going to have substitutes that are required for many of those positions. Not all, but many of them. In the area of 6600, again, this is just kind of giving you more detail from page 2 that's in the actual report that you have in front of you. We spent just under $470,000 in classroom office supplies, custodian and cleaning supplies, roughly $159,000. Natural gas and electric, our utilities, about $1.5 million, and roughly $66,000 in fuel, gas or diesel. So that gives you a little bit more context behind the numbers. The numbers are what they are, but at least you have a little more context as to what actually makes up those expenditures, so you get some real life examples as to hopefully bringing that report a little bit more to life and more meaningful for you. The next page, page 3 in your report, is the Classroom Site Fund report. You can see there, that's what at the top of the PowerPoint slide, that's the actual snippet of what the report looks like. But again, a little bit more context to that. So the classroom site funds totaled a little over 4.2 million that was actually paid out in fiscal year 23 to approximately 260 certified teachers. When you subtract the insurance and benefits, their gross compensation was $13,159.98 to all teachers who were eligible for classroom site fund monies. They used to refer to it, and sometimes you'll still hear it referred to 301. The actual name for it is classroom site fund. On page 4 of the annual financial report and shown on the PowerPoint, you have a breakdown of just unrestricted capital outlay, which are your capital funds, your 610 funds. Again, broken out in the spreadsheet. It's just numbers on a page in various object code columns, but a little bit more context to it you can see on the PowerPoint. These are such things as curriculum, books, vehicles, construction, site improvement projects, technology, also software, hardware. That's what encompasses that 610 expense, which was a total of, you see there in the top right area or the bottom right of your page. It's highlighted at 1.3 million, it's just under $1.4 million in capital expenditures in fiscal year 23. The next page, on page 5, this is just a breakout of federal and state projects, their grant funds. These are funds that typically, most grant funds are about 15 months in length, so they span multiple fiscal years, usually 2 fiscal years. So we run negatives in the beginning, we even things out during the year, and then as you roll into the next fiscal year and start a new grant that lays over top of it, sometimes the ending fund balance or the ending balance is also negative. But that ends up, it continually flows, reimbursement requests are coming in monthly. So those numbers are constantly moving and changing just depending on the fiscal year and because it does cross fiscal years. One grant is still running while the new grant is beginning. The next page is a page that summarizes, they label it as other funds. So these are funds, a lot of them are cash controlled funds. Whatever cash comes in, that cash balance will dictate whether or not you can spend out of that fund. So if you have $20 in the bank, then you can spend $20. So budget control funds are a little different. Budget control funds, whatever your budget is, even though you may not have the cash at the time there, you can still spend because your budget allows you to do so. That always makes me a little nervous because I want to make sure that whatever checks we write actually clear the bank. So thankfully we don't have a cash flow problem. So we typically we're pretty solid across the board. But these other funds just show you beginning fund balances, your revenues taken in, your actual expenditures, and then your ending fund balance. It's like a standard checkbook. The next page, page 7, has a little bit of a variety of information on it. Top left corner, I'll just highlight, those are your bond, these are the bond expenditures, your debt. So you can see there that outstanding bonds as of July 1, 22 was just under 27 million. We issued in fiscal year 23 the final series, Series C, of the voter-approved bond initiative that passed in November of 2016. So that final chunk of that money, Series C, we took in another $13.7 million. We retired about a little over $2 million in debt, and outstanding bond debt is about $38 million. Over on the right side of the page, just kind of highlight a couple areas. You see the information that we have to post annually and keep on our website continually, the average teacher salary. So you can see there the average teacher salary for employed individuals in 23 was $45,662 compared to $43,581 from the year before. It was roughly a 4.8% increase from 22 to 23 for teacher salaries, and that's the average. Going into, we'll jump from that page to the very last page, and what you have in front of you, it's the summary section. This is very similar to 2 slides ago. Just again, another list of funds that we manage, where you see beginning fund balance, revenues brought in, the expenditures out of those accounts, and then the ending fund balance as the result of the end of the fiscal year. You see various funds there, food service, civic center as we rent facilities, gifts and donations. There's classroom site funds. There's a variety of funds kind of summarized on that page. Makes it a little bit easier for the public to just do a quick glance at it and find a fund that they may have questions on and look at the history of where we started, how much we received, how much we spent, and then the ending fund balance. So if you go backwards 2 pages in what's in front of you, my slide kind of jumped around here because this is actually a new page that was added to the financial report. So in the PowerPoint presentation, you see a small snippet up in the top left corner. That's what the page looks like in full of what you have in front of you. But then I blew up that bottom section there on the PowerPoint so you can see it a little bit bigger. And that summarizes expenditure trends and history from the time COVID relief funds were administered to not only this district, but every district and other organizations. So you can see the history of ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and any other COVID relief funds that were administered from the beginning of that period until present. You can see the expenditure history there from ESSER 1. At the end there, that's the amount remaining to spend. So out of the $952,000 that we received in federal funds for ESSER 1, the first issuance, we had about $6,000 left to spend at the end of that period. And that period ended on September 30th, 22, so about a year ago. So we did everything we could to spend every penny that we could, from $900 and almost $1 million down to only leaving about $6,000 on the table. Was pretty good in what we had to work with at that particular time. ESSER 2 just expired on September 30th, just a few days ago. So we're in the process of doing completion reports and finalizing that. And we will be much of the same. We will be down to, I think we're down to like $800 if I remember right. So when you're right around $4 million that you received, and we worked it all the way down to about 800 that we left on the table, we were trying to maximize every dollar in the context and I can't stress this enough, that we utilized it based on the parameters given. And I believe we've been very true to that. Every department who's touched ESSER funding, our focus was on student learning loss, which was a big thing and still is, that we're still trying to work through as a result of COVID. Student learning loss, improving air quality, ventilation systems, those things within the district, transportation, just trying to get kids and families back into the post-COVID, hopefully back to normal, what was pre-COVID. So again, I think we did very well with keeping true to what was given us and maximizing every bit of money and using it appropriately, and having roughly $800 left is, like I said, it's a pretty good thing. ESSER 3 is still ongoing. I'll go ahead and you can stay on that page if you want, but on the PowerPoint slide, there's just kind of a summary showing that ESSER 1 is now closed. ESSER 2 just closed, but we still haven't finalized it yet because, again, we're just days after. But you can see this kind of a summary as to what was used. Some of that has changed a little bit as we had change in needs, still in alignment with what the federal funds were given us. We had to do budget revisions through the state, so we had many budget revisions where we had to go back to the state saying, hey, we really have a need here, still in alignment with what the funds were intended to do, but we have to be very specific as to how we're going to address those needs. So we would have to go in and do a budget amendment or a revision and change things around and give them the exact position totals of an intent of how we're going to use those funds. On the far right side of that presentation is the ESSER 3 summary, roughly just under $9 million that we are eligible for. That's a draft that's still on the district's website that kind of highlights the plan and vision for using ESSER 3. Again, it was a draft to solicit community input and trying to have the community engage and helping to address needs within the district and utilizing these monies. That was a kind of a summary as to what we believe and what we've heard were needs. You can see on that report there teacher or workforce housing that was entertained in the past years ago when this came to be. One of those things changed. We're focusing on, again, student learning loss and also improving air quality and the air quality and efficiencies within our school district, within our buildings. which was evident in your approval last month in approving that $3.2 million HVAC project. So this is what I have. The final PowerPoint slide image is always the transparency image where people can go to see what is not only sent to the state, but to see what it is that we review here and what we discuss on a monthly basis every time we meet. And the financials will be posted here on the website within the coming days to make available for anyone who wishes to review it. And that's what I have as part of presenting the annual financial report for 2023.
I move that we approve it.
I'll second.
Carl Niederman,
Any discussion? Yes. Okay.
You're the president. You can
Any
decide if
discussion?
we have discussion. I know.
Yes.
Ramon,
Yes.
Eric Guerrero,
Yes.
Bob Messing.
Yes.
Moving on to 5.1, I'll take a motion to adjourn, unless we have any other announcements.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Carl Niederman,
Yes.
Lisa Ramon,
Yes.
Eric Guerrero,
Yes.
Bob Messing.
Absolutely yes.